Ah, it's so beautiful. I'm here in Facebook Horizon at a new exhibit, a special exhibit, Artemisia Gentileschi. It's all about the most famous 17th century Baroque painter. She's really famous today because feminists in the 70s sort of rediscovered her and revived her work. But she had fallen out of obscurity for hundreds of years. We'll take a look at 5 to 8 paintings here in this exhibit and get to know Artemisia more. Through discovering Artemisia, we'll gain a larger understanding how her work could have fallen into obscurity for so long and why it is so popular today and relatable for people, mostly women, around the world. Today is Museum Monday, and I am Paige Dansinger, the founding director of Better World Museum and the Horizon Art Museum, and I'm your host today for Museum Monday. Let's go check out and get to know Artemisia. First, we'll wear a Horizon button. Yeah. Okay, let's go take a look. This is a painting by Artemisia Gentileschi called Susanna and the Elders, painted in 1610. When she was still very young, she at this period when she created this painting, she was maybe 15 years old, and she was living in her father Orazio's home. He was a famous painter and hosted a studio that many fans and friends and painters came in and out of. He hosted classes and different people would come in and out. And one of those people was Agostino Tassi. He was collaborating on a ceiling mural, and he became Artemisia's painting teacher. We know that Artemisia experienced we know that Artemisia was raped. Sometimes that can be hard to say, but it's true. And we have court documents with her testimony as well as Agostino Tassi's defense. He was prosecuted for his crime, but the courts, he was never, he was punished, but he never had to like do anything. His punishment was unenforced. Well, we know that before that happened, although this one incident can be a huge pivotal experience, we assume that Artemisia had more experiences that were negative before this one, and that she, was probably subject to other leering men or other propositions within this house. And, growing up a young woman in any community and time can be a little suffer from unwanted misogynistic society and people. So in this painting, when she was 15, she created Susanna and the Elders, in which she's pushing away two old men who are leering at her in the bath. And it is a biblical story. Artemisia is not unique in creating this work, but what she does is she really centers herself or the perspective of a woman right into the narrative. The protagonist is a strong feminine character, and she's pushing and saying no, and you can really see that she does not want their attention. Her body is almost twisted in a sort of a violent protest, and she has like this incredible swooping air to push them away and pivot away. The background of their environment is also really telling. Within the stonework, we have a etching of her, kind of the never-ending vacuum of demand and desire. And I've heard visitors say, "Oh, it looks like those men have a lot of weight on their back," and it's true. They have the weight of the history of how men have treated women and disadvantaged humans, or LGBTQ people, or disabled people, or diverse people. That cloak or that satchel must feel heavy, right? And it must feel like a mountain to push away. So we'll continue to learn more about Artemisia. She, after her trial, we know that she was tortured. She was administered thumb screws, and for a painter that must have been very upsetting. She also experienced a litany of really violating questions and like checks to her body to verify her, all kinds of humiliating experiences within this very, very public rape trial. And right after this trial in Rome, she was married to a Florentine painter and left Rome altogether. And for the next period of her life, she goes on to really establish herself in museum, with patrons and clients, and huge commissions, and really sort of defined who she was as an independent painter. And let's go see some of the works from this period. One of the most famous and career-defining works, Judith slaying Holofernes. We have Judith and her maidservant Abra, working really hard to behead Holofernes, another biblical story in which many other painters worked to create. But again, this one is very unique because she centers herself, or a strong female lead as the protagonist. And we see the power through her being, instead of Holofernes or a male-centered view. In this work, I think it's very significant because it's the first time we see a work in which she shows women collaborating. And this time, other versions show her maidservant Abra, really quite standoffish, but here Abra is really like putting her full force in and holding him down, and this 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 could not have been accomplished without the two of them working together. And I feel as though there's significance in this. In the original story, testimonials of Artemisia in her public papers of her trial, she talks about how their maid was at home that day and didn't intervene when Agostino and another fellow held her down and assaulted her. Agostino apparently called, when he entered the room to violate Artemisia, he yelled, "No more painting!" And I feel as though the power of women has always been a threat to men's achievements. We know that her father, back when she was painting Susanna and the Elders when she was young, 15, was writing letters claiming that she had surpassed her elders in her achievements. And here we really clearly see evidence of this as a powerhouse in painting. A second version of Judith beheading Holofernes rests upstairs in the museum, and we will take a look at both works to really compare their differences in power. This original canvas was trimmed at one point, and so we don't know what happened in the rest of the composition. But in the work that we're looking at now, we really see a sensuous and intimacy with what is happening within the dynamics of this painting. We see like the curve of the forms, whether it's of the shadows from the extreme high chiaroscuro techniques from the shadows of light and dark that play on their face, swooping down between her breasts, following her arms, and coming down to behead, and even the blood dripping down the bed sheets has like an elegance, intimacy. It draws you in. It makes you very aware of the sensuality that and sexuality that is happening at the same time of this grisly act. There's a heightened tension. Let's take a selfie. Yeah, I really love that piece. And in today's world, in 2017, Me Too filled the internet with stories of Me Too survivors and stories of people in our culture today who have taken advantage of women, men, and LGBTQ, disabled, diverse, young people. Stories just flooded the internet this exhibit hosts a cloud data cloud as well that highlights that time. But within this work, before we move on, that selfie felt really important because there's really not one among us. They say 1 in 4 women are raped, but there's not really truly one among us who hasn't felt taken advantage of or violated or like a sense of loss of power. And this work is so identifiable for so many people on this world and planet today. And we would never want to be the oppressor, but always work within our community and add strength to support vulnerable voices. So I really love this work. And that's why I loved sharing a selfie of it with you, right here. So many people can see ourselves within the work. But Artemisia also used selfies as well for her own work. She was a master of putting her own self-image into... Ooh. My finger sometimes is touching that. Stop. There we go. Avoided it very clearly. Whew. Here I am, back. And I've got a selfie spot that I can even stand on. Artemisia interjected her own image into her paintings, and this was exciting for her to do, and something in which she never stopped doing once she started. Periodically throughout her life, she would create her self-portrait as part intentionally as her work. So here she is, the self-portrait of Saint Catherine of Alexandria, and Saint Catherine was tortured. She was put on a torturing wheel. They now call it Saint Catherine wheel, and it broke. And here Artemisia puts herself in with the broken wagon wheel, and she has a martyr's palm she holds, and she really looks out at us with this this look that says I too have suffered, and I am rising and growing and kicking ass and coming back stronger than ever. I too was hurt, but now I am resilient. It's an important work because we can each feel vulnerable and rise. So we have the opportunity to put on some wearables and take a selfie. Ta-da! Another painting that is a special one to talk about is Artemisia's The Lute Player. And maybe of all of Artemisia's paintings ever, perhaps I like this one the very most. she's not a queen or a tortured or vengeful woman from a biblical story. In this work, she's more simple. She's a lute player and possibly in love. She looks hopeful and joyous in this work. And we know from some court documents at the Medici court that there was a mistress, Artemisia, who came and to a party, a costume ball, dressed as a lute player. And perhaps this was painted shortly. Perhaps it was Artemisia Gentileschi, we don't know, but that we see her here with a headscarf and a belt and beautiful blue cloths, and we feel as though she's in costume, she's dressed up, right? And around this time, Artemisia also had a crush. She had a lover. She wrote letters for years and years with a gentleman in Florence, and perhaps here she is with a bit of a blush for her crush in this work. It just has something in which the other works don't have. It has a sense of hope, of there's not a vengeful woman here, and not all of her paintings had vengeful women, but this one was particularly vulnerable and hopeful for new things, life, and love. So I think it's a special one, and we'll take one more selfie with it as lute player. It captures life. Yeah. Let's go upstairs and get to know Artemisia in the height of her career and how she matured. We're going up some a spiral staircase with no center support. This is inspired by architecture in 16th century Venice. Now we'll go right to Artemisia's most important painting, Judith beheading Holofernes from 1920. And really this is her biggest masterpiece. We see her full triumph on display as she beheads, or Judith beheads, Holofernes. And actually, people have wondered, did Artemisia portray her attacker, Tassi, as Holofernes? And the answer is that actually he looked quite different, that this is not an accurate portrayal of Agostino Tassi. Perhaps it's a composite of other visual ideas that she had about what Holofernes may have looked like, or I just don't know. but it's not what Tassi looked like. Although I visualize him looking just like this, but it's not the case. So in this work, we really see Artemisia. Artemisia is matured. She has met more people. She's friends now with Florence. In Florence, she's made a huge circle of friends. She's friends with Galileo, for instance, who taught her about the way blood would splatter with an arc. So here we see that sophisticated scientific thinking within this work. And it's not an easy painting to look at. If you notice that we have blood just streaming through the sheets and splattering on her dress and onto her breasts, well, we really see Abra again pushing down with all of her might, and Holofernes just struggling to stay alive. But there's no doubt about it. These women mean business, as Artemisia really did mean business. She hosted a very successful studio. After Florence, she went to Naples and opened up a painting studio that was sustainable for 30 years. She, during this time, she collaborated with other artists. She had giant commissions, and but she was also very real. At some point, her boyfriend in Florence stopped communicating with her. The rents rose from her landlord would raise the rents, and she would complain to him. Her patrons would, start to pay her less money for her commissions, and life just wasn't a struggle. Life was a struggle, just like she was a single mom at this point. Her husband had left her. He had affairs on his own, and they weren't getting along anymore. And even though she ran a successful business for 30 years, she still had a lot of struggles and a lot of grief, and had to, imagine being a female entrepreneur in the 17th century was really hard in such a misogynistic society and world. Well, this work really gets it out. That's how I feel. Let's take a selfie. Yeah. I'll just share a little bit more about Artemisia. One last work. Self-portrait as the allegory of painting La Pittura from 1638 to 39. Now, this was a work that was created a little later on in her career, and she really shows herself as the triumph, as the allegory of painting herself. She was such a boss that she embodied painting. She was paint itself. She was the whole essence of painting within this work. And she wears it well, right? She owns it. She looks at the canvas and out into the imagination and possibilities. She holds her palette and brushes with confidence, and there's a regality about Artemisia here. A final sense of I am powerful, I am resilient, I am triumphant, I am La Pittura. So here, of course, you're able to put on and take a selfie. But also, we have a special opportunity because we really encourage more community voices whenever we have an opportunity in the museum. And one Horizon creator, Nava K, a special friend of the museum, and here within the Horizon community, my partner in Wonderful Wednesdays, and the person who taught me how to make a interactive voice button that is in other museum exhibit parts within Horizon Art Museum, created a dress, Artemisia's La Pittura's green dress, and we can hop into this little room and try it on and be Artemisia. So let's hop in here to the museum create space. So welcome to the museum create space. This is a really fun space to get creative and to let yourself go. You're able to be La Pittura. So here's a dress created by Nava K. Ta-da! And I'm able to grab one of these pens. And create. So let's draw and be La Pittura. You can draw and connect the stars. Or color in part of the painting. Or twirl. Feels really good. Feels really good to be La Pittura. I feel like painting, the essence of painting, and I feel powerful and resilient and triumphant. Yay! Thanks, Nava, for creating this dress. I'm gonna go hop back into the exhibit now. Here I go. I love this. Okay. We're in the blue, but it's preparing for visitors. Here we go. All right. Well, this has been Artemisia. And the last thing we'll do here is just make a wish and toss it into the fountain. Here's a coin, and it's styled after a Florentine florin, but I put Artemisia on it as La Pittura, and I'm going to make a wish. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks for joining me, Paige Danziger, on Museum Mondays at our special exhibit, Artemisia, in Facebook Horizon. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. Farewell.